this is a place called Signal Hill in a town called St. John's at the easternmost part of the American continent. Country is Canada, but just at the tip of the Newfoundland Island. Almost a century ago, to 1901, Marconi claimed that he received the first transatlantic system signal from the UK. The 3 dots are there, which he said he received. 3 dots in Morse code are S. That was the first. I just wondered whether they're trying to send SOS and then they stopped at S, or the signal faded. It was a bad day, I have heard, I have read. It was a bad frequency of choice, kilohertz, 850 kilohertz. But nevertheless, this paved the way to where we all are. I mean, 100 years, 120 years down the line, and we're talking about things which even we didn't imagine when we all joined this industry. But fast forward, maybe 80 years later, we have actually come a long way. If you look at where it all started, and the brilliance of telecom and this industry is it actually kind of revives itself, reinvents itself every 10 years. Give or take a couple of years, sometimes faster than 10 years, sometimes slightly later than 10 years. When 1G came, it actually connected the people, and India didn't get on the connectivity bandwagon at that point of time. We joined this bandwagon around mid-1990s, that famous liberalization of telecom industry. So we joined this story at 2G. 2G came in 90s, and it started from voice, basic voice. And from voice, it moved to messaging. We were still physically connected there, but it was just pure play, person-to-person communication. Then came 3G. 3G brought internet into it, broadband in our hands. We started sharing photographs. Images became big. So from voice to message, it became image. And then later in the decade, we actually started rolling out 4G. 4G moved images into a more live way of looking at things, more immersive, more inclusive part of it, when it started talking about video. And I call this last decade, 2011 to 2020, as the decade of video. So again, we moved from voice, we entered video. The famous 5G change around happened earlier this decade, globally and in India as well. And like the secretary just said, I think we now have finally not only converged with the global landscape on state of the art, we believe a tad ahead of them at this point of time. The way we are using the technology and the way our consumers, more importantly, are using the technology. So what 5G brought into the foray is not only connectivity was increased and enhanced, it also got the classical holy trinity of communication. The connectivity was supported by compute and storage. So the digital ecosystem only needs these 3 pillars: connectivity, compute, and storage. And 5G made it native. Our ability to compute on the fly, our ability to compute on the flow itself became native to the whole ecosystem. And that is one fundamental shift, because once that happens, you do not need alien or adjacent systems to get into connecting point A to point B. Now the connection itself is intelligent. The connection itself is compute native. Now what next? What is going to happen in the next decade? And that is where I think the standards are underway. That is where the whole thought leadership is trying to define themselves. But what we believe is going to happen is, with this technology foundation, the intelligence or the intuitiveness or the awareness of ecosystem will now start getting merged in, which means that we will not only be using this as a service, we will actually become part of the service itself, not only as individual consumers, but as organizations, as processes, as manufacturing entities, as transportation hubs. This will actually now literally imbibe the digital into their ecosystem end to end. And this is not very delayed. You're talking about 8-10 years every decade, and 8-10 years every decade, and so what, if you look at the famous Maslow's law or Maslow's hierarchy on how evolution happens, I think there is a very stark and uncanny correlation of telecom evolution to Maslow's law. If you look at the first 2 generations, we're talking about physical basic connectivity. People got connected. Maslow talks about the physical needs of food and shelter. And this actually translates into the ecosystem of telecom as physical connectivity. The first two generations connected people. That was the most physiological or physical layer at which you need to connect it. Layer 1 in our famous OSI model. That is what 1G and 2G gave. When 3G came in, we started talking about stability. This was the first time, and I don't know, at times we take things for granted. We are so close to this industry and we are so much part of the industry. But if you recall, 3G for the first time made your device indispensable from your person. 3G brought the concept of always on. 3G brought the concept of always connected. The whole stability into the telco ecosystem, into the communication ecosystem, actually got together by 3G. By the time 4G came, and this is Maslow's hierarchy of belonging, togetherness, friendship, the whole social media got down us. In fact, the adjacent developments around hyperscalers, we're talking about Facebooks of the world, we're talking about Snapchats, Instagrams of the world, they all kind of converged here. So the community became bigger. The belonging, the friendship actually started becoming bigger on the internet than on the discrete world in the real world. So this is the belonging layer of Maslow, where 4G realized it into a digital ecosystem. 5G brought esteem into it. And when I say esteem is about personalization. Esteem is about not worrying about the underlay technology, using it the way you want to it. There is no kind of difference now between the way we use digital and the way we use anything else. In fact, the way we use digital is more kind of connected with us. So that's your sense of esteem, or that's your sense of 5G. We don't know the last and the most aspirational layer of Maslow, which is actualization. With 6G, do we talk about intuitive networks? Do we talk about embedded networks? Do we talk about intent-based and adaptive networks? This is where the fundamental change is happening. And you step back and look at it, we've been all part of this journey. We've been all part of this journey from day one. And we have moved along with telecom. We have kind of adopted to the new type of devices, new type of ecosystem, but it has been so seamless and so flawless on the overall time flow that we actually do not realize how far we have come in these last 40, 50 years for a thing which actually started on 100 years back from a wireless communication or mobile communication or telecommunication perspective. Stepping back to here and now on this journey, just a word about Jio. In fact, Secretary did mention it. In fact, for one full year now, 4 quarters, we are now consistently world's largest data operator, far ahead of even China Mobile, who has more than 900 million mobile customers, because we do speak more and we do consume more as Indians. So half our customers consume more than what their 900 million people do. But with these kind of very compelling statistics, 500 million mobile customers to 20 million homes, 20 exabytes of data on a monthly basis, unheard of in any country, and this is just one operator. If we pull together all our consumption, I don't know what ceiling we're going to break. So this is 9 years of Jio history, but this is where the journey in first 9 years happened. This is where the convergence of technology, convergence of ecosystem and usage happened. What next? What is it for us now in for store to see where the technology is going to lead us? And if you talk about technology, there are only 3 or 4 fundamental tenets that actually drive this whole technology. This exponential growth from G to G to G to G, every time a decade changes. No other industry has this privilege or has this capability to reinvent itself every 10 years, and that too at a scale we're talking about hundreds of millions of customers going forward. I call these 3 guys 3 wise men, and they actually have founded the fundamental laws which is breaking the speed at which the evolution or the innovation is taking place. Everybody knows about Moore's law. Compute actually doubles every year. We know, Kreider, that the storage gets half every year, 13 months, whatever the actual law is. And finally, Gilder on connectivity. Bandwidth in the universe doubles itself every year is the statement he made. And so true. When something doubles itself every year, and if you extend it over a period of 10 years, we're talking about a 1000x increase. 2 to the power 10 is 1024. And if you look at Sitting in 2025, if you look at speeds in 2005, we were talking about kbps speeds. 2015, we were talking about mbps speeds, exactly 1,000 times that. In 2025, we're talking about gbps speeds, another 1,000 times. So it has actually, this is not book, this is not theory, this is not something which is in papers. This is getting realized because of this technology. 1,000x increase in throughput, 1,000x increase in compute power. In fact, we were looking at the capabilities which NASA had from a compute connectivity storage perspective in 1969 to send 3 men on the moon and get them back. And each one of our devices today, 55 years later, is a billion times more powerful and more sophisticated than all of NASA in 1969. So we're carrying maybe 2 NASAs in our pockets, 2 billion NASAs in our pocket as I speak. They used it to send people on moon, and we can share reels on Instagram using the same compute and capability. But that is how it is. Now, but how is it? I mean, what is the law? What is the fundamental telecom law which is kind of driving this? I don't know how many of you recall this, gentleman. I mean, the Lajpat Nagar setting is for effect. But this is Claude Shannon, the father of information theory. And the good thing about Claude, or the more important and impressive thing about Claude, is he is the only person who is talking about a negative theory. He is talking about the limit of channel capacity, limit of information capacity. And engineers all over the world, scientists all over the world, companies all over the world, Bell Labs, they are all trying to get systems which are as close to Shannon's information limit. This is called Shannon limit, and Shannon, the formula is simple. It only has 3 components: the spectrum you use, the power you use, and the spectral efficiency you use. And as we go ahead and as we look at what is moving around from G to G, from 3G to 4G to 5G to 6G, these 3 things make fundamental changes over 8 to 10 years to surpass or to recreate a generation. Spectrums, I mean, moves from kilohertz to megahertz to multi-megahertz to sub-terahertz to terahertz going forward. Every time a exponential and order of magnitude kind of upside. Similarly, your spectrum efficiency increases big time. Every time you have the right compute ready, you are able to cancel interference better, you are able to manage your signal strength better, you are able to direct your beams better. And all these technologies come together and create something which is fundamentally at scale different. And that is why the new generation. And finally, the power. I think one of the biggest pain points in our industry is the way we consume power. And our efforts to actually get that power consumption lesser and go greener and reduce carbon footprint as much as possible. And if you look at the capability of power amplifiers, maybe 5 years before today and maybe in 2030, they are now innovating, which means from the same kind of power with a higher bandwidth, we will be able to actually generate and produce more GBs. And this is where the fundamental G change is going to happen. This is where the next G will come from these 3 killer innovations that will continuously evolve to give you a totally different level of productivity, both from spectrum and power perspective. But if we move this and step back to our country, India, and see where are we on digital innovation, and we have actually broken a lot of paradigms. We have actually undone a lot of things which were so-called holy cows in our country, specifically from a technology perspective, specifically from comms perspective. We've all talked about urban-rural divide, the famous digital divide. In fact, India most probably, to best of my understanding, is the only country where we are actually defining digital divide in a different way. In fact, our rural Uttar Pradesh's, rural Bihar's and rural Maharashtra consume more data than Delhi's and Mumbai's and Hyderabad's and Bangalore's. Which means the divide is now more urban and rural. The rural guy has better devices, the rural guy has better consumption, he actually has more consumption and more time spent. Our divide is different. It is not urban-rural. Our divide is the ability of the customer to connect to the digital ecosystem. One of the biggest divides we're talking about is the generational divide in our consumers today. We're talking about maybe 20% of our people still not fully digitized. It's unfair of them to not pull them on the digital bank. Because with 2G, The payments are not possible, the streaming is not possible, the health is not possible, the applications are not possible. Now, we are making these people divide. It is not about rural India or urban India. It is about this kind of digital divide where we have 3 generations or 4 generations of gap, where the person on a 2G phone does not even have a glimpse of the glory which he can actually consume, subsume, and use to make his life better. Second part is again one of the biggest industry issues which we are all trying to jointly fight. Telecom is an essential infrastructure. In fact, today telecom is more essential than electricity. But still then, why is it that we have to go and we have to try hard to get connectivity, be it airports, be it our highway tunnels, be it malls? I mean, Secretary mentioned that we are one of the most economical and cheapest revenue models from a consumer affordability perspective. But to deliver that, we will have to, and the state-of-the-art equipment and the cost of the spectrum. It is literally unfair for the infrastructure requirement or for the infrastructure agencies to start on top of it billing us for connectivity. You don't, when a new building is built, they don't go back to electricity board and say, oh, you pay so much and only then we will let you put electricity in our building. Then why do they ask us to pay something to put telecom equipment inside? People need connectivity as much as they need electricity. And this is true. This is cutting across sectors. This is cutting across verticals. This is cutting across states. I think if we need to go in the future, and get the real value out of telecom, we need to really start using telecom as an essential and infrastructure. And then only the future, my favorite quote from Calvin as I end. The funniest thing about future is it keeps on converting into present, and we need to be ready for it. Thank you so much.